You know that classic sci-fi idea that there are other universes, parallel worlds, existing just out of sight? Well, what if the key to finding them was a tiny, invisible particle that's streaming through you, right now, by the billions? Today, we're talking about neutrinos, and we are asking one seriously mind-bending question. Right, this is it. This is the central puzzle we're going to try and unpack. It's a question that lives right on that razor's edge between solid, known science and, well, pure imagination. How could a particle from our world possibly jump over into another one? So here's our game plan. First, we're going to cover what a neutrino actually is, the real science. Then we'll get into why it's the #1 suspect for being a universe hopper. We'll break down 3 wild theories for how it might work, look for any clues in the real world, and finally separate what we know for sure from what's pure fantasy. Okay, before we dive off the deep end into parallel worlds, we've got to start with our feet on the ground. Let's talk about what physicists actually know about these incredibly strange and elusive particles. So what is a neutrino, really? Well, it's one of the fundamental building blocks of our universe. The key things to know are that it has almost zero mass, no electrical charge, and it basically ignores almost everything it touches. That's why it's got this awesome nickname, the ghost particle. Take a look at this number. Billions. That's how many neutrinos, coming from our sun, are passing straight through your body. Not over a year or a day, but every single second. Right now. And because they're ghosts, you don't feel a thing. Kinda creepy, right? And we know for a fact that they do some really weird stuff. They could fly through a block of lead that's light years thick and not even notice. They can also shapeshift, changing their identity, what physicists call their flavor, as they zoom through space. But here's the most important part for our discussion. Everything we have ever seen them do, every observation, happens right here, inside our own universe. So if all the physics we know locks neutrinos inside our universe, then why on earth are we linking them to parallel ones? This is where we take a giant leap from what we've observed into the really wild territory of theoretical physics. And it's a totally fair question. I mean, of all the particles out there, why pick on the poor neutrino? What makes it so special that it gets to be our potential interdimensional tourist? Well, it really all comes down to these unique traits. That ghost-like ability to ignore everything, their tiny mass, their bizarre quantum behavior. It all makes them the perfect theoretical tool for interacting with things we can't see, like a so-called hidden sector or even a mirror universe. Now, to make these theories work, scientists had to dream up an even weirder particle, the sterile neutrino. Seriously, if a regular neutrino is a ghost, this thing is a ghost's ghost. It wouldn't even use the weak force. It's basically a particle that's almost completely invisible to our universe, making it the perfect candidate for belonging to another one. So let's just say for a second that a neutrino could cross worlds. How would it actually pull it off? This is where the ideas get really, really cool. Physicists have sketched out a few possible blueprints. The speculation pretty much boils down to these 3 main pathways. Let's walk through them one by one, and we'll start with an idea that says our universe might not be the only game in town. Okay, this first idea comes from string theory. Picture our entire universe, everything you know, as just a single sheet of paper. Physicists call this a brain. Now imagine that sheet of paper is just one page in a massive, higher dimensional book. This theory says that while most of us are stuck on our page, a neutrino might be able to just leak off the edge and float over to another page, another universe right next door. The second idea builds on something we already know neutrinos do. They oscillate, they change form. We've seen them flip between their 3 known types. So this theory just adds a 4th option. What if they could oscillate into that super ghostly sterile form we just talked about? A form that doesn't belong to our universe at all, but to a hidden mirror world. Whoa, okay, don't let the math scare you. This equation is basically the recipe for that idea. All it's really saying is that the probability of a neutrino making that jump depends on 2 big things you see in there. L, which is how far it travels, and E, how much energy it has. The farther it goes and the more energy it has, the better its chances of just vanishing from our universe and popping up in another one. And this third idea uses a real and really weird quantum effect called tunneling. You know how a ghost in a movie can walk right through a solid wall? Well, in the quantum world, particles can actually do that sometimes. So this theory proposes that the wall of our own universe might just be a little bit flimsy for neutrinos, letting them tunnel straight through to whatever's on the other side. All right, those theories are incredible, right? But they are just theories. Is there any actual real-world evidence, any little shred of data that suggests this might be true? Let's hit the brakes and do a reality check. Well, here's where it gets really tantalizing. A few massive physics experiments have seen something weird. Anomalies. The results they're getting don't perfectly add up if there are only 3 kinds of neutrinos. It's like they're counting all the neutrinos that show up at the finish line, and the final number is just a little bit off. It's a hint that something might be missing from the picture. Now, these strange results have kicked off this huge worldwide hunt for that 4th sterile neutrino. But, and this is a really important but, even if we find it, and that is a big if, most physicists think it would just be a new particle that exists in our universe. It wouldn't be proof of parallel worlds. For that incredible idea, the evidence simply isn't there. Not yet, anyway. So let's pull all this together. It is super easy to get lost in all the speculation. So let's try and draw a really clear map that separates the hard science fact from the theoretical science fiction. This table pretty much lays it all out. Up top, in the known category, we've got neutrinos changing flavor and interacting weakly. We've seen it, it's a fact, checkmark. In the middle, you've got speculative, the whole idea of a sterile neutrino. It's a theory that scientists are actively testing right now. And then, at the very bottom, highly speculative, you have the big ideas, brain tunneling, parallel worlds. It's a fascinating concept, but for now, there's absolutely zero direct evidence for it. And that leaves us with one last kind of profound thought to chew on. While it's all speculation for now, you just have to wonder if these ghost particles, the ones that ignore almost everything else in the universe, can actually find a doorway between worlds. What else might be slipping through?